Yesterday we had two setups. We had shorts on the touch of this fair value gap, but we obviously didn't get that trade. And then we were looking at price coming into the golden zone. But we had to keep in mind that, look, at the bottom over here, right, we have an FEG where we can see price potentially hitting now. So what we're going to do is we're just going to draw up our markings for the day. Try see if we can get a potential entry, most likely for New York session today. But looks like price might come into our FEG, but let's just see what confluences we have, all right? So same thing as always, we need to identify the yes low and yes high. Right, so yes low, yes high is yesterday's low and yesterday's high. Here we have Monday because that was our markup from Tuesday. So now we're essentially looking for Tuesday's low, which is over here, 21,235 for me, and Tuesday's high is essentially the same as Monday's high. All right, so that's our yesterday's range, okay? Already off the bat, we can see that price is coming towards yes low, so that's Tuesday's low. So typically, just looking how price is moving now, when price is playing below the 50% mark of the previous day, usually we look for a break on yes low, okay? But before we get into any of that, let's remove our drawings temporarily and let's just look at what the day gave us, okay? So off the bat, we were bullish last week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday, we were bullish. And then we had our first bearish day yesterday, all right? So how price is playing at the moment looks like we might actually have another bearish day today. All right, just how price is moving. We have a lovely, you can almost say an evening star candlestick formation over here. It's playing out quite nicely, but let's look at our potential entries. Okay, so again, just how the day closed previously, looks like we might be able to be bearish and look for sells today, but keep in mind, right, we're still extremely bullish on the weekly. Okay, on the weekly, if you see over here, we're still bullish. We would like a pullback to at least a 50% mark, which we've identified in our last week golden zone. So if price does come further down, we can potentially see price heading over to that 50% mark. And again, we have this huge imbalance over here. You guys can see we have this huge imbalance from price, not last week, the week before, right? So the week before when price closed, last week when price opened, it gave us this gap up. And again, that was from the Chinese and US news. So yeah, at the moment, to be very honest with you, I would be looking at a bearish move to the downside. All right, so we've identified our yes low, our yes high. Now, what we need to do is we need to identify our golden zone. All right, we need to identify our golden zone. So because our bias is bearish, okay, we take our fib levels from the bottom to the top. And this is essentially our golden zone. All right, so that's our golden zone. And then we also have our 1.618 over here. Yes, 1.618. So looking how price is playing at the moment, okay, if we could potentially, we need to obviously update our trends, but I could see us maybe coming over to our golden zone. Just off the naked eye, we can see a trend possibly matching to around this area. Stop loss would be above the FEG, which is also last week's high. First TP would be yes low, all right. Second TP would be with the fulfillment of this FEG. Third TP would be yes 1.618, and then our final TP, all right, would be our golden zone. All right, so for shorts, it looks pretty good, but again, whenever we enter any trade, all right, any trade that we enter, we need more confluence, all right. So the more confluence that you have to enter a trade, the better it is. So over here, this trend here is a 1 hour ascending trend. We've broken, we've retested. We're going to keep this trend here because if you see on the 4 hour, all right, that's essentially where that 1 hour trend originates from, all right. And then we have a 1 hour, used to be 15-minute trend, but we can update it to a 1 hour trend. Over here, let's just make sure it's still sweet. All right, so now we go over to the 15-minute time frame. All right, and we try to identify additional confluence. Okay, so we do have our FEG over here. We do have another fair value gap over here. If you guys can see. So remember, with any fair value gaps, right, the way to identify it is once you see momentum with a candle, for example this, the next candle needs to at least fill 50 to 65% of it, which it hasn't. All right, so that could be another FEG over here. But my main thing that I'm looking for is a descending trend. All right, we need to try identify this bearish trend over here. So we have something like this. That there, we can say 15-minute trend. All right, so just off the back, okay, we have an FEG over here where we would ideally like price to come up to and fulfill. Excuse me. Over here, this could be potentially, so that I would say that that candle has a lot of momentum, right? But that candle got fulfilled. Okay, so like I said, 50 to 65%. But what I would like price to do is probably before New York session, we'll keep on playing around these areas, maybe break slightly below yes low. But for short entries, we ideally want price to come back into our golden zone. All right, so let's just say at that time, price might be over here. All right, our stop loss would be probably, let's just say 1, 2, 3, 4, something like this off the bat. It's quite a extended stop loss, but keep in mind, right, we also have a fair value gap over here, which price might potentially retest. So ideally what I would like to do in a scenario like this, okay, because our entry is slightly lower than golden zone, we need to monitor what happens with price here. So that's why we have confluences, and that's why we dissect our trades into the 5-minute timeline so that we can look at 5-minute Japanese candlesticks. All right. What's up, newbie? What's up, bro? So if price comes over here, all right, we see rejection on the 15-minute trend and also in our golden zone, we can potentially look for shorts. All right. Look for shorts, maybe have a slightly smaller SL. All right, because based off what the chart's giving us, okay, my stop loss, I would like it to be above the FEG, but that's really, really huge. All right. We'll probably work with a tighter stop loss, maybe something like this or slightly above that. But if price breaks this descending 15-minute trend as well as golden zone, all right, I would still be monitoring for shorts. I'll still be monitoring for shorts, but I'll aim for that FEG above. All right, I'll aim for that FEG above. So if we get shorts in that FEG, we obviously look for confirmation on the smaller time frame, being the 5-minute. And then our targets will change, right? Because we're taking shorts above our golden zone and also in our FEG, our stop loss would probably be something like that, above yes high. First TP would be the golden zone and this trend. Second TP would be yes low. Third TP will be the fulfillment of that FEG, all right, and then third would be last week's golden zone. But again, it all depends what price does in this golden zone, all right, what price does in this golden zone. I'm thinking that we'll most likely not have a fulfillment on that FEG above. We'll probably get a tap in this descending trend, entering the golden zone, and then in terms of stop loss, probably something like that. But obviously our target, realistically for the day, we could probably aim for this. Right, realistically for the day, we could probably aim for that. In terms of long-term target for this week, we could maybe reach this. All right, so let's just remove that fib. So that's essentially the trade that we're looking at for today with Nasdaq. Again, our bias overall for the week, right, is bullish, but we still need price to come back into that 50% zone. Otherwise, it's just going to keep on leaving imbalances on the table. So yeah, that's the setup that we're looking at. We probably will get this trade at New York session. I think for until then, price is probably going to keep on playing on this yes low. But the moment we can get a touch on golden zone and this descending trend, we can eye for a position. And if it breaks, all right, we can maybe see price heading for the FEG. So we just need we have a prediction, but we just need to react to what price gives us. And the moment we do that, we can possibly find a clear and safe trade setup. All right, so that's the setup for today, Wednesday, 21st May. Do you guys have any questions in the DC about the setup?